Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever. Another edition of the Bill Crane Report with Chris Gleason and Dwayne Weiss. Amongst those marked present.
All of us are here.
We're here. First off, I must pass along our thoughts, prayers, condolences to everyone affected by the vicious attack out in Las Vegas. A dreadful, dreadful affair. And now we've got to deal with sorting out this atrocity. Who was this guy? What was his motives? Did he have a motive? That would be even worse. But before we delve into that, I would just like to just leave the reservation just a tad here. In the National Football League, we have players taking knees during the national anthem for various causes. And I wonder if these young men are going to have any sort of demonstration. Are they going to take any knees in thankfulness for the great job the first responders did when they reacted to what was going on, the shots being fired?
Right.
All the heroes came forward.
Don't hold your breath.
That's right. But all of these people that were in attendance, so many of them, came forth. They stood tall when they had to be. They reacted. They tended to the wounded. They shielded people with their own bodies.
People
And
across
then-
the board.
and-
It didn't have to be macho people.
That's right.
It was
It was Joe Sixpack.
yeah. Or some young lady, 18 years
That's
old. Or
exactly
a girl, you know,
right.
just-
Yeah. This is the goodness of the American people, that when they're faced with adversity, they stand tall. I wonder if our football players will stand tall in recognition of those people.
Well, I certainly hope they took a lesson from that particularly the Black Lives Matter group and the anarchists, the Antifas, and all the other anti, whatever they're
Yeah.
against it.
Yeah.
They saw what really is going on out
Yeah.
there.
You know, there's all kinds of reactions going on to this, and rather than me just go on with a monologue here.
Did you see last night the baseball game? The Twins and the Yankees, that playoff game? Not one of them did anything. They stood at attention with their hats over their heart. The entire teams, both sides, really looked nice. There was no idiot bending down or doing anything else.
Yeah, taking away from the moment, yeah. In the NBA, the president of the NBA has put out the word, too, that there'll be none of that.
Good.
But the NFL seems to be still wrestling with it.
Yeah,
But they're...
weak leadership is what that
Yeah,
is.
of course it is. MONEY is what
Yeah.
it is. It's, but what was your reaction, Dwayne, when you first heard about this?
Well, I didn't hear about it till during the night. I got up about 5 o'clock, 5:30. I went down, I made a cup of coffee. I said, well, I might as well turn on Fox or CNN, see what's going on. And the first thing I see, 20 plus dead. What in the hell is going on? By that time, of course, I had to wake Monica too. Hey, Monica, you got to see this. What do you want? I said, no, you better wake up and look at this. And I was dumbfounded. And as I listened to that, I could hear the boom, 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 boom. I said to her, that's automatic gunfire in the background. That's not somebody with just a 308 rifle. I said, that's automatic fire, and from the sound of it, and I think you're going to find today that something like an AK-47s were involved too, because they have a distinctive low sound to it. And that those that you heard, that thump, 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 that was strictly something like an AK-47. And I guess he had some of those too.
He had a bunch of mixed and matched weapons, not just all one kind.
Right. But I for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what's a motive? And I don't know if we're ever going to find a motive unless they find something in his background. He might have been just a crackpot.
Well.
But maybe not. You know, they're not saying anything. That's another thing. The FBI, they're going to dig into every aspect of his life. I don't care how
Don't you think that's wise?
Of course it is.
I mean, these people that insist on dragging the story out of the witnesses and all of that, instead of letting the police do their work. Oh, no, they just want to cover something up.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
We'll never find the real story.
And in a criminal case, so often they compromise the case.
That's right. And that's exactly what they were talking about on TV last night. The sheriff out there was ripping about them showing his room.
I heard about that this morning,
Yeah. Christine, what was your reaction?
Well, I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it.
It strained the bounds of believability, didn't it? Now, one of the things too, that let's put it in perspective. This guy did a hell of a lot of planning.
I was just going to say it was well planned out.
Well planned. Now, how in the devil did he finesse his room past housekeeping? The women that went in and cleaned up and made the bed, changed the towels, never saw the weapons?
They said for 3 days he had the do not disturb sign out.
Aha.
But nobody had really gotten in there.
In a 3-day span, he moved 30 weapons up to his room and nobody saw them? I suppose
are so big you can.
The Mandalay is a big place.
And you could carry golf bags up. You could carry suitcases. You could carry, because if they ever, you couldn't dare use a bellhop because the damn things weigh so much.
Yeah.
You probably couldn't pick them up. But you can pick up those carts and haul it up. Nobody's going to question you.
That's interesting.
Well, he had so thoroughly planned out every single detail. I mean, he had a camera on the cot in the hallway.
Yeah, to see.
I mean, he was just, he knew full well what he was doing.
No question.
It was a suite he had that actually had 2 angles on it for firing angles.
Right. Oh, I mean, this guy planned it down to the nth degree.
So how much can you blame on human error versus weapon control? I mean, I think probably they both failed.
Well, okay. Last night on Fox News, Tucker Carlson was on at 8 o'clock. He took Bill O'Reilly's place.
Right. Okay.
Very bright and very combative young man. And he had a guest on. Well, I had 2 guests on. And they said, we've got to have gun control. This can't go on. We've got to have gun control. The Congress is cowardly for not passing gun legislation. And Tucker Carlson is saying to him, stop. You've got a national audience. Tell them the exact controls you want placed on guns.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, then he got tongue-tied. So, but he did come up with 3 things that he felt should be on the table. One, gotta outlaw bump stocks.
Okay.
So, and Carlson said, done deal. The NRA wouldn't fight that.
So, no big deal.
Number 2, have deeper background checks.
Yep.
So Tucker stopped him right there.
There's going to be a problem.
What does that mean? Well, let's delve deeper into the person. How do you do that?
Can't.
Well, we need psychiatric profiles before people buy weapons.
We've already been down that road.
Yeah. Now, don't we have laws about doctor-patient
Relationship,
confidentiality?
First thing when they mentioned that several years ago,
Yeah.
when these nuts started doing it, that we gotta stop it. Can't be selling these to mentally unbalanced people. Right away, the ACLU says, "Oh no, you can't claim that somebody's mentally unbalanced. You can't do that.
And you can't discriminate
Not
against him,
discriminate
even
against
if he
them."
is.
Yep.
So they yelled and screamed for a while. This guy thought that he could win the debate by screaming
Yeah,
louder
you get one of
than
those.
Tucker Carlson.
That's what Monica accuses me of doing.
This is, I love this next one. Close secondary market loopholes. Well, this was the battle cry of one Hillary Clinton. Stop the gun show loopholes. What are they, Mrs. Clinton? Explain them to us. You know what they are. I don't have to explain them to you. That's the answer.
She didn't.
That's the answer this guy gave last night. Just blasted right on by it.
Well, what the problem is you can buy in one state and take to another state. You can buy in a state where it's legal and then just take it to your home state. There's no control over the boundaries.
Well, if you are caught, there is controls. For instance,
There is.
now, as the National Rifle Association member, I get their magazine every month. Okay, there's stories in there after stories after stories. Do not bring your lawfully registered guns along with your lawful license into the state of New Jersey. You cannot do it. They will arrest you and put you right in the can.
One state out of 50.
Well, New York has very strict.
There's a lot of states.
Chicago.
Oh, my God.
Illinois has very strong laws on the books. Washington, D.C., very strong laws on the books. There's a bunch of crap out in California, too, a bunch of laws out there, too. But you're right, there's plenty of dead space in between where the people are sensible and are not going to jump all over you. If you're legally licensed in the state and you have a legally procured weapon, I don't see any reason why you can't cross state lines. This is the United States of America.
Well, the only thing is, what they should have done is made a federal law where all the states are the same. But the Congress didn't want to do that because they didn't want to offend the people in Texas or Oklahoma or those places
Rightfully so.
where they can carry their guns out in the open. So they left it to the individual states. But because they're in individual states, you've got this a loophole.
Tell me something. When you go to Maine, do you worry up there? Are you scared to go out in the population? Are you afraid to go to a restaurant at night or to a shopping mall or just walk along the seaside? Does that bother you or frighten you?
But the Maine people are different.
Well, wait a minute now. You have just answered my question. Why are such state laws important? Because people are different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
And they have different occupations.
And up in Maine, there's an anomaly up there. You can't carry a concealed weapon without a permit. However, if you have a pistol and you wear it out in the open without concealment, that is not a crime. That is your right. And you know what? The further up in Maine you get, and the more the wilderness is, and you're off by yourself, and there's bears and stuff like that, not a bad idea.
No. It's suicide in some places in Alaska to be unarmed,
Yeah.
just from the wildlife.
Well, and this fellow also had one other suggestion for a law. outlaw automatic weapons.
Well, there already are.
Well, there
Right.
are. Was it not the Homestead, but the Act of 1930 or 31
Yeah.
that outlawed machine guns.
Yep.
Takes care of this. Then we had the attack rifle ban in '96, Clinton's.
The assault rifle.
Yeah, the assault rifles, yeah. But they put a 10-year sunset.
Like 2004.
Yeah, it expired, yeah. So, I mean, that was ridiculous. Because the gun owners kept their mouths shut. But that ban on assault weapons, it talked about different manufacturers and different model numbers. So what manufacturers do? Change the model numbers.
Yeah.
Whoops, that's not covered.
And that terror assault weapon sends people into a panic. If it's got a folding stock, it's an assault weapon.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with it at all.
And this business about outlawing the modification of these weapons, we can't have them so they're on automatic fire. You buy one of the standard units, and you know a guy in the machine shop, and you can get the parts made in 2 days. Take the gun apart, put it back together again, and you have a fully automatic weapon. So, I mean, this is silly to outlaw something that is so easily circumvented. Now, outlaw the use of that and make it a 10-year, 15-year sentence for...
Wait a minute, you want to stop it? The hell with 10 or 15. Make it 50.
Then, yeah.
They didn't want to. It must have been a compromise.
No. I'm saying that's my
No, that's
suggestion.
his idea.
If we want to cut down on this modification business, just say you're free to modify it. Go ahead. If you use it, you're going to go in the slammer for 20 years.
Well, they should make it illegal to modify it. The people who do the modifications should face some sort of
Both.
punishment.
Both the modifier and the person with the modified should never see the light of day again.
Well,
if you want the
might
damn
be a
thing to
tad
stop,
draconian, but
if you want the damn problem to stop, you got to make the punishment severe enough to get your attention. Otherwise, it don't work.
do you know you're absolutely right?
Yep.
And the other problem is there's not enough people hired to enforce these laws when they make them. I'm against automatic weapons. I don't care what you guys say. But that you can't have gun control without increasing the personnel who's going to be in charge of taking care of the gun control. And that's where they fail. In a lot of cases, they make these laws, but they don't fund it to be enforced.
Do you know that I think that if we ever tried to enforce every law that's on the books, I think we'd need probably another 75 or 100 million people added to the workforce.
Well, that will solve our unemployment problem.
Oh, and by the way, talk about a classy move. They were still counting injuries and transporting people to the hospital when Hillary Clinton released a news flash. Imagine how many more people would have died if they had used silencers.
That's ridiculous.
That is absolutely asinine.
Well, look at the source. But these silencers, so-called,
Yeah, they're not movie
They're
silencers.
arresters, basically. They're going to cut back on the noise and change the pitch of the noise, but they are still going to be loud.
Yeah.
But people that say shoot for recreation or target practice, you should wear ear protection. Okay? And
Yeah,
this
that's-
is going to help
The
matters.
silencer just takes off some of the higher
Yeah.
decibel levels that do cause hearing problems later. But there's not like TV or movies where they go, psst.
Yeah, I know it. Listen, if you have a 25 caliber automatic, not an automatic, a revolver,
Yeah.
and you put a silencer on it, you can make it go. Pff, pff. But you get much bigger than that. You get problems with silencers. They simply don't work.
That's right.
Who did the movie Clockwork
Stanley
Orange.
Kubrick.
And he's the one who talks about desensitizing people so that one murder used to be outrageous, then everybody got used to it, then there had to be 2 murders. Well, that's how I view this. I think it's more like an attitude, a culture that people have that, and I blame video games. I'm a little maybe crazy, but
Oh, I don't think there's much doubt about that, Chris, but
the level of violence becomes more and more acceptable and not as outrageous. This is outrageous, but are we going to get used to this and have something bigger in the future?
let me put this in Bill Crane perspective.
Okay.
In the state of Massachusetts, 8 people die every day from drug overdoses.
And my answer is the same. It's the attitude, it's the culture.
But why have we got our neck in a knot about Las Vegas, as horrible as it is, and on innocent people, when we're losing 8 people every day in this state?
And that gets me crazy because when somebody from Congress is shot on the baseball field, the whole nation has to respond to it, has to mourn for it. But I'm sorry to say this, but blacks get killed every day. And do we make anything out of that? No, but just one congressperson, and the whole world has to stop and be silent, etc.
There's a lot more to that story.
Well, I'm sure there is.
Steve Scalise. That guy had told people, by the way, he was a Bernie Sanders follower, devotee,
Okay.
And had volunteered for the Bernie campaign. He went out there and he told people he was going to kill as many Republicans as he could. I think that's a huge story. And I think we need to know that. That mentality is there. Now, we have a lawyer, corporate lawyer for CBS, I think it was. I got her name in here someplace. And Haley Geftman Gold. And she's vice president and senior legal counsel at CBS in New York. She said she's not even sympathetic because country music fans are often gun-toting Republicans.
They've got to box everybody into a category. They cannot.
These are the people that are commenting on these crimes. Now, don't you think that sort of festers the sick minds to bigger and worse things?
No, what was she? She was a newscaster?
No. She is a vice president and senior legal counsel at CBS in New York.
And how did you come across this information?
She put it on her Twitter account, social media. It's in the news. It's all over the news.
Okay.
Her name is Haley.
The news people didn't directly videotape her. And she didn't say that during a news show.
No, this is
No.
a Twitter
Yeah.
or a tweet.
Haley Geftman Gold. There's no doubt that she said it because CBS immediately fired her. But she's self-described as a Columbia and Penn grad, 41 years old, lives in Brooklyn, and describes herself as mommy. Well, you know, they had a fellow on last night too, Tony Schaefer, CIA-trained operative for the CIA, needless to say. And he made a point that, well, James Hodgkinson was going to try to kill as many Republicans as he could, the guy that shot Steve Scalise.
You should have had an automatic rifle.
But
Should what?
But he went on to say both attacks, the Steve Scalise attack and Las Vegas attack, were similar against conservative groups. The left wing hates Trump, conservatives, and the NRA. A C&W concert attracts Republican and C&W gun owners, so I'm going to kill them. But is there a thread? It used to be that the conservatives were the gun-toting guys that went out and shot up the place, excuse me, when they didn't get their way. But the liberals, the left wing, are the ones that are creating some of these horrible acts. Look at the attacks on police. It is, and the riots in the towns and everything. Mm-hmm. Who's doing this? Left-wing groups.
It's a left-wing group that's doing it.
So
they protest Nazism, but they're acting more like Nazis than Nazis themselves.
You know, someday when we get nothing to do and all day to do it, we're going to talk about Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. I keep saying that, but how did Hitler come to power? It wasn't through the ballot box. It started with what they call free corps. Mm-hmm. And these were nothing but groups of thugs that went out and battled each other. It was the Nazis against the communists in this part of town. It was the Nazis against the Social Democrats in this end of town. It was the Nazis against the old line conservatives in this part of town. And they would have speakers because they didn't have TV, they didn't have radio. So how did they get their message out? Their leader used to speak on street corners or in halls. Of course, there was no PA, so, he used to stand up and howl, his message, blah, blah, blah. And the other groups would come in and try to break it up, and it would always be fist fights or worse. People would get killed. This is very, very similar to what the Democrats, the left wing in this country, has been doing, mm-hmm. breaking up demonstrations. Do you realize on campus, if you're a conservative, they demonstrate against you. And how did they demonstrate? By rioting.
Rioting.
That is violence, taking violence to the streets in opposition to whatever it is you're opposing.
They justify it.
Yeah. That's But anyway, so anything further to talk about this except, just one other point that I'll make. I've made it before. I'll run it by you folks again. 40,000 automobile deaths a year in this country. Okay? We license firearms. But do we properly license drivers? Now, a 17-year-old kid, now economics to one side, a 17-year-old kid could go out and buy a Mercedes or a Porsche or an Audi that's capable of 170, 180, 190 miles an hour and drive it on the road.
16 in most states.
Without any bloody special training at all.
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
that's right.
This is ridiculous. And to make things safer on the roads here in Massachusetts, we've decided to legalize some drugs. That's going to add a lot to the safety record of the state of Massachusetts. But this is dangerous. Well, anyway, any parting words, sir, on this subject?
I'm going back again. If you set your rules, you set your laws, enforce the damn things, and enforce them with vigor, and make the punishment enough that it fits the crime. If you want to willy-nilly on a punishment, then you're not serious about the crime.
But how about these people but they're just boys. Yeah, they killed 3 people, but they're just boys. If you put them in prison, you're going to ruin their lives.
Too damn
Yeah.
bad.
How about the 3 people's lives they ruined already by killing them? But we don't look at it this way. We got
No,
this
we got-
bleeding heart, bloody
Particularly in this state,
mentality.
we have no stomach for punishment.
No,
in this
we
state.
don't. And also, individuals will not accept responsibility for their actions. How about you, Christine? Would you like to finish up this subject?
Well, I don't know if it's really on the subject now, but the thing is, nobody wants to be the bad guy and say, you have to do this. Nobody wants to say no.
Do you know that you have just paid for your salary on this show with just that little soundbite? Because you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Everybody wants to be the good guy. Oh, Bobby, I wish you hadn't stabbed little Susie to death with that knife. I know you didn't mean it, but her folks feel awfully bad now. You march yourself over there and apologize.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If you want, honey. Otherwise, I'll write them a note. I mean, I may have gotten just a little bit carried away there, but nonetheless. By the by, something I missed in the newspapers or on TV.
No,
Yep.
I can't believe that.
Impossible.
CBS News fired Scott Pelley.
Yes, it did.
And do you know what? Now, I got to find out if this was the only reason or not. But when he was commenting on the attack on Steve Scalise, he first described the shooting by the Bernie bro, as Howie Carr says, as foreseeable, predictable, and to some degree self-inflicted. In other words, because Steve Scalise stood up for his beliefs, I mean, he took some crazy guy and pushed him over the edge. Give me a break. Not only should he have been fired, but he should have been deported to some dark, dismal island in the middle of nowhere. Golly. Well, anyway.
Can I bring up a subject?
Would you please? Of course.
Withdrawing men and women from Cuba embassy. And I read a little bit about it, and it said that it talked about the illnesses that caused them to withdraw them. They're deaf, have tinnitus, have stomach problems, hearing, headaches, and dizziness, and poor balance. And I said, that's me. And
Yeah.
I'm not in the Cuban embassy.
too.
They're probably going to send you over there. No, I think what happened is, well, I don't know, but I'll be willing to bet you it's something like X-rays or radio waves that have been bombarding these people with.
Something strange is going on.
Well, yeah, they hate us. That's probably it. But it's not mass hysteria. I mean, they've really been pushed over this. Well, look what the North Koreans did to that kid they were holding over there. And then they sent him home when he was dying. He was a vegetable. Yeah.
But for them to actually outwardly, zap them with some super X-ray gun or something, that gets a little bit crazy. I think if it's not something natural or something unusual, I think there might be some kind of a disease or something going on. I suspect they should start looking at the water they're drinking and the food that they're eating.
Right.
Because you can get those kind of symptoms from, you eat a piece of bad chicken, you're going to get tendinitis or that tinning in your ear and all that other stickness. Those got a lot of symptoms of absolutely food poisoning of some type or exotic. In a place like Cuba, God knows how many bugs are around there.
But could it be a made-up illness?
Well, it could be too. It could be psychosomatic, some of it.
Well, or is it just an excuse to bring them back?
On whose part? Who would make up
on
that
the U.S.
excuse?
government. Trump.
If we wanted to bring him back, we just
You
bring
just
him
would have
back.
brought him back. Yeah, there's no.
Yeah, but that doesn't look so good. You got to have a reason.
Oh, I don't think that he lays awake nights thinking about things that might
what it
not
looks like,
would make
yeah.
him look so good. I think he takes action first. But
It just seems so false to me.
no, there's external forces here. The old conspirator in me is sure of it. But good story, though, nonetheless. By the way, one of the things here, this editorial is opinion by Charles Krauthammer, who's probably the most brilliant man in the world, talks about how we treat the mentally ill. And we, in this state, pioneered putting them back in the community. We had a wonderful system of state hospitals. Yeah, but some of them didn't want to be there. But some of them couldn't cope with being out there because of severe mental issues.
And we can save the state a whole lot of money if we close them all down.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
exactly it. That was J. Michael Dukakis. Put them out in the community where they'll be happier. Yeah, well, take a look at the homeless in Boston and ask them how many of those have had mental problems and how happy are they living in a
my.
cardboard box on the street, you know? But what Charles Krauthammer talks about are the rights of the mentally ill for self-determination, for them to be out in the community, more important than our rights for safety and to be protected by the criminally insane or the very disturbed. And he said, I vote for the institutions where we can work with them and hopefully help some of them to where they could possibly go out. But this business about put them back on the street, put them in a halfway house. These halfway houses, by the way, boy, you read some of the stuff in the paper about them,
Oh yeah.
there's no supervision.
A lot of them are profit motivated.
Well, of course they are, yeah.
And they really don't care.
And the safe houses where the addicts go when they're drying out, when they're under the state care, and they put them in these safe houses, they're nothing but drug dens. I mean, that.
Again, the stories are just starting to break about these rehab places.
Yeah.
But you also notice the rehab places they're never in Hoboken, New Jersey. They're in Malibu, California, or someplace nice in Florida. The gorgeous looking spas. And they actually got people out on the streets, different places, like in Boston someplace, recruiting people. You got insurance? I can help you. You can go to a 60-day spa or a 90-day or 180 days. Insurance will pay for it. It's all a profit. It's all a business for these people.
Well, there was a story in the paper. This lady, her son, for 10 or 12 years had fought addiction. He got himself, finally, cold turkey, and then they put him in a safe house to work through his other issues and blah, blah, blah. Then he dies of an overdose in the safe house.
In the safe house, yeah.
She is given his worldly goods. In there is a diary. It tells, well, shot up today with Eddie, shot up again. Every single day he was doing drugs in there. Every day. And that certainly brings new meaning to the word safe house.
Well, who's ever run the safe house, as long as they can keep him addicted, the longer he stays. The
And
longer he stays, the more money they
he
get
gets
back in.
from the state.
That's right.
That's right. So this is all just, I won't say all. I'm sure some of these places try to do the best job they can. But boy, there's some places out there that are ripping the government off.
You bet.
And keeping those people on that stuff. Very, very bad.
Even the mentally, I shouldn't say insane, the mentally disturbed that's in our society. look at what happened to the schools. You take a student today that should not be in the general classroom, and they mainstream him in the general classroom, and he's total disruptive for the whole class. They got to put up with whatever he's got. There's no rights for the other 25 individuals in the class.
I know a teacher who could probably comment on this, Chris.
Yeah, well, it happened to me.
Yeah. Well, a good friend of ours, she was a teacher for a long time. Well, she retired after 40 years or something. And she used to comment, she says, you get one or two of them, and she says, your whole class is done.
Tell us about it, Chris.
Well, it just kept on. We had to keep on changing our curriculum, and we had to change our hours. It was a constant struggle, and then when the person had a problem, the education stopped.
Yep.
My big complaint with this is, and God bless these poor people that have got learning disabilities and got problems. But what happens is when you put them in the classroom and you say, you must teach this individual, you pull down the level of the teaching down to his level. How
and
do
you do not give that individual that needs the help because you can't.
Yeah.
If they went to I want to say special school, a special class, someplace where they had a small class, that's where the teacher, they knew that these kids have this problem. And the classroom is taught to them, specifically to them. They're just so much better off than mainstream them.
They tried to make a compromise where the kid would be with the rest of the class for certain activities which they were capable of doing. And then they would go out for special instruction. But the thing is, those people need security and routine, and when they're pulled out of the classroom and they come back, they have no idea what's going on. They're completely disoriented. And it singles them out and makes them feel different, too.
They're
there's no way you can do that.
Stigmatized.
They go out and they come back in, and it's just, I don't know. The problem what they were trying to correct was that all these kids were stigmatized, and they went to this one classroom, and then they felt that they could never get out of this classroom, this special classroom, because they would always be behind. But I always use the analogy, your brain is like a bucket, and you can fill it so much with water, and you can just keep pouring water and pouring water and pouring water, but that bucket is only going to be able to hold so much, and it can't hold anymore. And people in education don't feel that way. And some kids, you just cannot teach them beyond a certain level. And they're going to be at that level all their lives, no matter how many resources, times, methods, techniques you use. And people in education don't want to accept that.
And you're right. If, in fact, this level is achieved, you're right. Pouring more water in the bucket doesn't get it done. And to what end, you know?
And I had a girl one year who would cry because she knew she couldn't do it. Her family put a lot of pressure on her to do well in school, but she couldn't do it, and she just made her emotional wreck. Have had several students like that. And one kid I had was taught organization. He had a problem with organization. And this parent came in and said, the teacher he had before was wonderful. He taught him how to be organized. Well, the kid was a wreck. The kid was a wreck all day long. It was like this. I mean, there's just some things that can't be done.
Well, you're right. You're right. But it just, well, it's a heck of a problem.
It is. And there's nothing perfect.
No. And then, of course, you've got people in the classroom, kids in the classroom, where English is their second or third language.
Yeah. That is so ridiculous.
And, you know, you take all these factors and you roll them all together, and then you say, why can't Johnny learn? Well, mission impossible. It's sort of like, why can't Christine teach? How can I with all these roadblocks?
There's even another aspect. It's called fraud. in the whole system. This individual I was talking about, a good friend of ours, and she taught for almost 40 years in the Maryland school system. On the Maryland side of the West Virginia side, Maryland's got a Appalachia end of it too.
Yeah.
And the first time she ever heard about it, she said this kid came to school one day and he was just totally acting up. And she says, Johnny, what are you doing? Oh, he said, my mom told me to act crazy when I get to school. She says, what are you talking about? She said, well, if I act nuts enough, my mom can get crazy money from the government. And they get $600 a month paid their mom to get help for the kid. No restrictions on it. She just gets a check. Then they found out that the kids, a bunch of the kids that had behavior problems, were all being told at home, go act nuts so we can get some money. And this showed up in Massachusetts a couple of years ago. And I said, you damn fools, that's something called crazy money down in Maryland, West Virginia, and Kentucky. They've known about this for years.
Unbelievable. And I don't know. And then, well, so dump on this some more. The city of Boston is paying teachers not to teach.
To teach, yeah. That's the dumbest thing. Of course, that's a union thing again.
Yeah. You've got...
Unassigned, they call them.
I guess you've got, if I understand, you've got ratings for teachers.
Okay, you have different,
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
goes
then
like
you've
that.
got some at the bottom that have got very low ratings, and schools
But
don't...
high seniority.
Yeah, but high seniority, and the schools don't want them. Okay? So, because they can't get a school assignment, they go in this pool of backup
unassigned, they
teachers.
call them.
Unassigned. And they're still being paid their pay.
To come in and read books, do crossword puzzles, just
Watch TV.
Watch TV. Yeah, it costs them, I don't know how many millions of dollars.
14 million,
Oh,
I think.
I think it was even higher than that.
well, they do have backup substitute teachers.
This is not substitute. These are unassigned teachers with seniority that didn't get assigned because they were less than desirable as teachers.
And so, if a teacher is overwhelmed in a classroom and says, I need a teacher's aide, you can't use one of these people.
You gotta hire
No, the
outside
union
teacher
says
aide.
you can't do that. You can't take a qualified teacher and make her an aide. What are you, insane? No. That's a violation of our agreement, our contract with the city of Boston.
Yep.
So they just sit on the sidelines until finally they get their 40 years in, or
Thank you very much.
65, or whatever comes first, and then they retire on a fat pension.
Yeah, but the question is, what percentage of people are like that? I'm sure
It doesn't
there
matter.
are
It's how many
firemen and-
millions of dollars is being wasted. That's the question.
Well, the other thing, I was reading in the newspaper the other day, they're going to spend $31 million for MCAS, for testing the kids. And to me, the MCAS don't improve the education. It may measure it, but every year when I was teaching, they kept on changing the MCAS, what the test covered, what it didn't cover. So it was like you always ended up comparing apples with oranges, with bananas.
Right.
So you could never get any real information. And the other thing is, if you had the kid for 3 years, that would be fine, but you pass them on to the next teacher. The teacher has to learn about the kid all over again, and you just can't and you don't get the information from the MCAS, at least you didn't, in September. You don't get it till halfway through the school year.
Right.
But going back to this pool of teachers that no one will take, we can't lay them off either. Well, I mean,
obviously,
they're incompetent. No one wants them. So, but no, you can't let
Got to
them
keep
off.
them.
Got to keep. Now, as far as the MCAS is concerned, I don't think it's a job of MCAS to improve the education per se. I think it's the job of MCAS to measure how effective education is and how effective the administration and the teachers are, so that we can make changes that will then affect the educational system. I think the MCAS is an important thing because you got to find out where you're at. It's like this country with
Look at the results you get from the MCAS. Lexington is high, Linfield is high, Lawrence is low. Somerville is
Brockton
low.
is low.
I mean, it's no surprise.
No.
sometimes you have to hit people over the head to get them to believe this and the legislators to act on it.
And I'm not sure, but I got the Charlie Baker, and I don't know if they're still holding to this, but a while ago I read that they wanted to evaluate the schools, and if the school wasn't keeping the school, he wanted to put a minimum of what you would pay for each student. And if your town wasn't paying that amount of money for the student, they would take away government aid. If they don't have the money to spend already, and you're going to take the money away, and what Earth is using money as a guide or measurement for what good the education is doing?
Well, I think there's probably a correlation between the amount of money spent and the level of the education. But I think that the town has got to be held responsible. If they're told you've got to spend $8,200 a year on students and they don't do it, I think the state has to act. Now, well, how does that take effect? Maybe mandatory taxation. Maybe you go into the town and say, raise your taxes 5%, 6%, and pay the right amount. If not, well, then perhaps we'll have to take over the school system. The state will. And then you'll pay. We've got to do something. What we have isn't working.
But the problem is, and I keep on going back to this same thing again, it's the attitude. I had Asian kids in my room who did their homework, were always very polite, did their work, and it's because of their culture. They valued education. I had kids leaving my room to go out and get a haircut during the day, or to go to Disney World or someplace like that. It's the attitude of the people. They don't value education.
Well, obviously, Harvard doesn't either, because Harvard has put a limit on the amount of Asians that can enroll. It doesn't matter how they score on the tests, even though they're always in the 80th or 90th percentile. Nope, we're only going to take so many.
Yeah, it's not just Harvard. It's
Stanford,
Stanford.
I know,
It's
I know.
MIT. It's all.
But how is that fair?
But they have to have diversity. Isn't that the big thing?
Oh, well, diversity. Yeah.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go
why
ahead.
is diversity so important?
Because there
Makes
was
us feel better.
Yeah.
it was a way of getting people of color into these
So you mean affirmative
universities.
action instead of diversity here?
Pardon?
You're talking about affirmative action then instead of diversity.
But see, it's another form of affirmative action. They're calling it
could be, yeah.
diversity. They're giving it a different name.
It doesn't make any sense why there's a black kid and an Asian kid and a Filipino and somebody else in the classroom. It makes it that much better. It really doesn't have anything to do with it. It
Depends on what you're educating for, what's your ultimate goal of your education. Do you want it to be that you understand different cultures and different people?
I don't think you have to you split up a classroom or an employment to understand different cultures. Not today.
Diversity, it's an interesting goal if you can find qualified people. But when you take a look at President Trump's cabinet, he has been vilified by the left for all middle-aged white businessmen. Well, it seems to me that when you're running a country and you're forming a cabinet, you damn well better pick the best qualified guy or gal that can go out there and do the job.
Yep.
The cabinet is not a platform
It's
for
no different
For
look at an NBA,
experimentation.
look at an NBA team, tall black guys. What do you mean all tall black guys? What about some short white guys? What about a little Chinese guy over here? How about him? You want the person that's going to do the job.
And the cabinet is not a platform for social experimentation. It is for getting the business of the country done properly. And
But they would say that doesn't represent the country.
tough turkey.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but the blacks say they want a black role model.
Why can't they? Why does it have to be a black role model? I thought.
I don't know, because they feel more affinity for them. I don't know.
I can understand that, okay? I can understand that. But that doesn't mean they should be in the cabinet of President Trump.
I knew a person who was a recruiter, a professional recruiter. And his job for a while was to find black physicians just because they were black, because some communities weren't comfortable with a white physician. He was out recruiting black physicians. Now I said to him, if some country or some town came to you and said, find us a white physician, boy, oh boy, it would have been racist.
How about if your son needed an operation?
Yeah.
All right? A very critical operation. And you had a young minority recent graduate from medical school, or you had a white middle-aged doctor that had performed the operation 3,000 times. Your son's life is in his hands. Who would you pick of the two?
Experience.
Of course.
I don't care if he's green, yellow, or black. It doesn't
That's
matter to me.
exactly right. By the way, folks, we're going to wrap it up. One folder done. We haven't even touched all these folders.
And a bunch
so we got plenty more to talk about. Stay tuned. And on that note, good night.
Good night.
All good day.
This one here.